Welcome to Dead Souls Social Club.
Good evening, everyone. If you enjoy our show and find our research both interesting and informative, please can I ask that you consider leaving us a 5-star review on your chosen podcast platform. Something that small really does help us out a huge amount. You can also find out more about us and our work by heading over to deadsouls.co.uk and checking us out. We are a small team of 3 researchers with more than 70 years of experience between us. You can also find us and speak to us over on Instagram. Just search Dead Souls Social Club and we'll come up. So, as always, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This audio presentation contains graphic details of death, violence, and controversial subject matter. Listener discretion is strongly advised. From Dead Souls Media, this is the Manchester UFO. I'm Jamie Black, a researcher and psychologist, and I'm your host for tonight. A UFO sighting recorded in June of this year at Manchester Airport in the United Kingdom has seemingly gone viral online. It has ignited a huge wave of speculation and intrigue across social media platforms such as X, formerly Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. Its communication has added further bizarre and unusual circumstance surrounding the incident, as the pilot who spotted the phenomenon, who used the online pseudonym Captain Bigelow, has seemingly had all of his social media accounts shut down within hours of reporting his sighting. Captain Bigelow reported on Wednesday afternoon, the 27th of November 2024, on Twitter that he witnessed a silver orb-shaped unidentified flying object at and above the airport in June. The object was described as hovering just inches off the ground before shooting skyward at extreme and impossible to duplicate speeds. Understandably, this immediately sparked widespread debate about the orb's origins and the lengths to which officials might go to keep such sightings under wraps. The pilot's detailed account, coupled with the mysterious suspension of his social media accounts after sharing the information, has led many to suggest a calculated cover-up. Now, I know that in this day and age, just the words cover-up tends to cause eye rolls and an immediate end to interest in what is being said. But I think this particular instance is worth looking closer at. The post that Captain Bigelow made on Twitter reads, quote, Manchester Airport UAP sighting from inside the cockpit. The object descended vertically at 15 knots of wind, was the size of a small car. It hovered perfectly stationary a few feet off the ground. ATC sent out an ops vehicle. As the vehicle approached the object, it took off vertically. Unquote. I'll add that whilst this sighting is credible in itself, coming from a pilot, what makes it even more intriguing is that the pilot also shot photographs and video of the object. I'll include these on our Instagram for you to take a look at. What's thoroughly fascinating is that the object in the video can be seen crystal clearly, hovering just a meter or so off the ground, displaying a sort of blue hue. It's clearly not a known aircraft. I will say aircraft here, even though I have no idea what the item actually is. The sighting reportedly occurred at Manchester Airport while the pilot was seated in his cockpit preparing for departure. Captain Bigelow described seeing the silver metallic orb hovering a few feet above the ground in an area adjacent to the tarmac and also adjacent to a number of planes on the ground. As stated, the object was about the size of a small car and appeared to move silently, defying conventional expectations for aircraft or drones. The orb remained stationary for several moments, as if observing its surroundings. When airport security personnel approached the object, it abruptly accelerated vertically at an unimaginable speed, vanishing from sight within seconds. I would be curious to know if this object appeared on airport radar. In fact, when I contacted Manchester Airport, They informed me that they didn't comment on such things. I would say that given the airports operate a no-fly zone within their airspace, other than authorised aircraft of course, this item would certainly not be something which had permission to operate above the airport. We'll come back to this point in a short while, however. Such rapid ascension of the object and entirely devoid of any visible propulsion or accompanying sound seems to be a common observation for many documented UFO sightings. This further fuels speculation about its nature and origin. Captain Bigelow's description of the event aligns with numerous other reports of orb-shaped UFOs worldwide, often characterized by their reflective surfaces, seamless designs, and advanced maneuverability. The pilot, clearly aware of the skepticism often directed at such claims, decided to share the video footage online to substantiate his account. You can tell from the wording of the pilot's post that he holds an interest in the UFO phenomenon. A number of news outlets have ran authentication tests on the video and photographs and have stated they can find no evidence of fakery or image tampering. We decided to run our own tests. A member of our team has significant image and video capabilities, and they too could find no evidence of tampering or footage manipulation. We are entirely confident the video footage and photographs are entirely real, accurate, and display a true account of what was observed. Just hours after posting the account and footage on Twitter and Reddit, Captain Bigelow's accounts were suspended without comment across platforms. These suspensions have understandably fueled much speculation of a deliberate attempt to suppress information about the incident. Now, many within the UFO community have suggested that authorities might be pressuring social media platforms to remove content related to the sighting, either to protect sensitive information about classified technology or to prevent public panic. Which is very interesting, particularly given the United States' seemingly open debates and conversations about UAP sightings, or at least what seem to be open debates and conversation. The lack of official acknowledgement or explanation has only deepened suspicions. Whilst the United States has, in recent years, held congressional hearings and presented a visible openness towards the UAP phenomenon, the United Kingdom's government has not shared their willingness to be so open, and they still maintain a refusal of acknowledgement and denial of acceptance surrounding the UAP phenomenon, at least in public. We know that the UK government operate a secret UFO investigation department within the Ministry of Defence. That much has been common knowledge since the 1990s, when Nick Pope emerged in the media as a former UFO investigator for the MOD. But what we don't know is quite simply any more than that. The US congressional UFO hearings, as well as the releasing of footage and documentation about UFOs to the public, is all quite obviously propaganda and part of their long-running disinformation program about what they actually know. Have you ever heard of the saying, once CIA, always CIA? Well, give a side-eye to Luis Elizondo. In my personal opinion, nothing about the US footage is leaked, nothing about the congressional hearings is genuine, and nothing is about to get released to the public. Again, in my opinion, we are no closer now to disclosure than we were 20 years ago. In my view, this is all classic sleight of hand. Look over there, but don't see what's happening over here. Classic US government operation tactics. Hey, we are just like you guys. We don't know anything either. What could possibly be going on? It's all so strange. Now, whether they hold actual knowledge of extraterrestrial, interdimensional, or other intelligence or phenomenon, or are running an advanced military technology program that they are covering up with this misdirection is unknown. It might be both. It might be neither, but we'll never know. Anyway, I'm going off in a tangent here. I don't normally enter my thoughts and opinions into the chat, but tonight I'm adding my 2 pennies, as this is a current event episode. Critics argue that such UFO incidents highlight a troubling pattern of secrecy surrounding phenomena and sightings, particularly those involving credible witnesses like pilots. The abrupt disappearance of Captain Bigelow's online presence has left many questioning whether his testimony threatened to expose information authorities prefer to keep hidden. The nature of the silver orb seen at Manchester Airport remains a topic of intense debate online, with several suggestions emerging about its origins. One very plausible explanation is that the orb represents advanced human-made technology possibly linked to experimental military or private aerospace projects. Its silent hovering and rapid acceleration could point to breakthroughs in propulsion or materials within science which is currently unknown to the general public. Manchester Airport's proximity to military and research installations does lend some credence to this suggestion, although no official connection has been established. But, and this is a big but because this is a stretch of a suggestion in my opinion, why would developers of any so-called experimental tech be operating this equipment over a nearby and very busy public airport if it was manufactured at a nearby base? Those kinds of projects cost hundreds of millions of dollars, sometimes even billions, and the people who are working on them are instructed to keep them confidential. They are operated at the highest levels above top secret clearance. So why would they operate that piece of technology where many people could see it? It doesn't make any sense. Further, if it's a surveillance operation by, let's say, a foreign actor, then the airport is public. Anyone can enter that location and take pictures and record film. So to monitor the location with advanced secret technology is also extremely unnecessary, overkill, and not at all likely. What if the orb was a piece of technology not owned by humans? A hypothesis supported by its behavior and design, with a seamless metallic appearance and extreme maneuverability being consistent with numerous UFO reports worldwide and other unknown observed phenomenon. These sort of sightings are often interpreted as evidence of extraterrestrial technology and evidence of an extraterrestrial craft. But in my view, not knowing what the phenomena is doesn't immediately mean it's extraterrestrial in origin. That outcome is so far down the list of any possible explanations that realistically and without solid proof, putting it forward as a suggested reason for unexplained phenomena is why individuals in the scientific community tend to distance themselves and ridicule those who suggest it. That's not to say that it's not a possibility, but we have to eliminate all the other far more likely explanations first. For me, I don't understand why no one ever seems to suggest that this is a phenomenon from our own planet that we are not aware of as yet. Do we know everything there is to know about the world that we live in? Absolutely not. So to suggest this phenomenon is of earthly origin is far more realistic an outcome than aliens. But here we are. Hey, science has proven that multiple dimensions are a reality. So what not to say that this phenomena is not interdimensional? It's entirely plausible, right? The swift suspension of Captain Bigelow's social media accounts has reignited discussion about how UFO sightings are handled by authorities and what control, or suppression, is in operation. The incident echoes similar cases where credible witnesses have faced silencing or dismissal after attempting to share their experiences. We thought we were past all of this, right? That's what the US congressional hearings implied. Proponents of the cover-up theory argue that governments and military organizations may have a vested interest in controlling the narrative around UFO sightings, particularly if they involve advanced technology or extraterrestrial phenomena. I suppose this also raises the question and possibility that the government may well be moving towards a more open forum or discussion on the subject, but that doesn't mean the military-industrial complex feels and acts the same way. We know from many previous episodes where I have discussed the subject that the military-industrial complex operates above the government and in many aspects leads or controls the government, not the other way around. But keeping such events out of the public eye could prevent mass speculation, protect sensitive research, maintain geopolitical stability, protect religious status quo, or prevent mass panic to the public, right? Caution against jumping to conclusions, whilst advisable, is not something demonstrated by the UFO community, however. The Captain Bigelow account suspensions might simply reflect social media platforms' policies against unverified or controversial claims. But even as I say this, I know what your reactions will be in this age of disinformation. Hell, you could even argue that by removing the disinfo is actually a double bluff. But this is where things get a little too confusing. The timing and lack of transparency still feels very suspicious. The Manchester airport sighting has captured the public's imagination, not only because of the mysterious object itself, but also due to the circumstances surrounding its aftermath. Incidents like these highlight the growing demand for transparency in the study and reporting of UFO phenomena with the US, UK, Canada, Australia and Europe. Acknowledging the existence of unidentified aerial phenomena and increasing efforts to investigate them is gaining more and more momentum amongst the Western public. The Manchester sighting underscores the importance of rigorous and open inquiry, adding another layer of intrigue to the ongoing mystery of silver orb UFOs over the United Kingdom and beyond. Some military officials and defense analysts have suggested a correlation between increased UFO sightings and the movement of nuclear weapons within the region. The escalating international nuclear tensions have certainly increased the movement of such weapons and the likelihood of use. So how does this correlate to UFO sighting data? Well, I checked. There has been a 79% increase in sightings of UFOs in locations within a 20-mile vicinity of nuclear weapon bases, missile silos or military installations, a volume of which hasn't been this high since the Cold War. But could that just mean that these objects aren't extraterrestrial in origin, but just foreign military secret technology? Very possibly, yes. An explanation which is far more likely than of alien origin. But we are told by our governments that Western technology is far more advanced and superior than Russian, Chinese, Iranian or North Korean technology. Advanced by several decades, allegedly. But is that true? Is what we are being told entirely accurate? Well, this is something that I personally do believe that our governments are correct on, but it's definitely worth questioning. Let's postulate here for a moment. Let's say that extraterrestrials or interdimensional beings are visiting Earth. Let's assume that some of them, in their super advanced technological crafts, have crashed over the last several decades. Let's assume that some may have made contact with the military or government at some point. But what if that has happened in Russia, or China, or North Korea, or Iran, or any other country that's unfriendly to the West? What if it's those nations who hold advanced technology from another world and not us? What if they have the upper hand from acquired technology, and that's what Westerners are seeing in our skies? Just a thought. But let's talk about the nuclear weapon angle. We all know that over the decades there has been significant numbers of UFO sightings in locations where nuclear weapons are stored or operated. It's even led to a common theory in the UFO community that these objects or beings are monitoring our use of said weapons, likely due to a concern for our planet or the survival of our species, possibly. A concern for the wanton destruction that we could potentially unleash by using such weaponry. Again, it's no secret that UFO sightings became more prevalent shortly after the US first began using said nuclear technology at the end of the Second World War. This theory, while speculative, does align with reports from around the world, however, that unidentified aerial phenomena tend to appear near sensitive military sites, particularly those associated with nuclear technology. The suggestion that UFO sightings above the UK might be tied to the transportation or storage of nuclear weapons is not without precedent. As I stated, historical accounts, declassified documents, and eyewitness testimonies have repeatedly linked unexplained aerial phenomena to military installations, leading some to believe that these objects may be monitoring human activity related to weapons of mass destruction. In the United States of America, for instance, former military personnel numbering in the hundreds have now come forward and reported UFO sightings near nuclear missile silos, some of which were allegedly accompanied by temporary disruption to the missile's functionality. The Disclosure Project, founded by Dr. Stephen Greer, provided just 20 of these credible ex-military eyewitnesses who spoke at the infamous National Press Club conference in May of 2001. Similarly, in Russia, reports have surfaced of unidentified craft hovering near nuclear sites, sometimes engaging in maneuvers that suggest deliberate surveillance and interference with the nuclear technology. In the United Kingdom, several notable incidents have occurred near military bases known to house or transport nuclear weapons. I refer to the now infamous Rendlesham Forest incident of December 1980, which involved a UFO sighting near the Royal Air Force Base at RAF Woodbridge. Woodbridge was a base that was rumoured to be storing nuclear arms at the time. I say rumoured as the UK government never confirmed the locations of their nuclear deterrent. However, security and personnel located at the site suggest the site was a nuclear facility. Former staff have also supported this. Witnesses to the Rendlesham incident also included United States Air Force personnel, who were also stationed at the base at the time. They each described seeing a glowing metallic object, performing impossible maneuvers over the forest. Radar signature also verified this. Multiple military witnesses also saw an object or craft slowly descend to a near-ground hover or possibly land within the forest. The incident occurred across 2 separate nights and involved multiple incidents involving the metallic craft with strange lights and impossible movements. This event remains one of the most compelling UFO cases in UK history, and its proximity to a nuclear storage site has fueled speculation about the motivations behind such unidentified objects. Recent reports suggest that sightings of silver orb UFOs have increased above the UK, coinciding with the transportation of nuclear weapons to undisclosed locations. Any nuclear weapon movements are part of routine military operations, the UK's Ministry of Defence has stated. However, with the geopolitical climate in Europe at the moment, with Russia saber-rattling, it's certainly clear as to why said nukes are being repositioned. The correlation between these activities and the spike in UFO sightings has certainly raised eyebrows among military officials and researchers of the phenomenon. It's a fairly on-the-nose acknowledgement of the motives from the objects or phenomena. Eyewitness accounts from civilians and military personnel describe these UFOs as behaving in ways that suggest intelligence gathering. Interference and interaction is rare from the objects, though it does sometimes occur. But observation and surveillance seems far more likely. The silver orb, observed at Manchester Airport, though not directly linked to a nuclear facility, does fit the pattern of unexplained aerial activity near sensitive locations. The idea that UFOs might be monitoring nuclear weapons is based on the idea that these objects, whether extraterrestrial or originating from advanced human technology, are interested in humanity's capacity for destruction. Proponents of this theory argue that nuclear weapons represent a significant milestone in technological and military capability, one that might attract the attention of external observers from a foreign or extraterrestrial perspective. Nuclear activity and technology could signal a level of technological advancement that warrants closer scrutiny, although this technology is now 80 years old, and in my opinion, not considered new. So any observation is far less about the advancement and far more about its use. The argument that speculates that UFOs might be concerned about the environmental impact from nuclear detonations, which could extend beyond Earth or affect other realms of existence, seems far more plausible a motive. Regardless, the advanced capabilities displayed by this phenomena, such as their ability to hover silently, accelerate at incredible speeds and evade detection, imply technologies far beyond conventional drones or aircraft, which is why many lean towards their origins being from somewhere else, shall we say, not from our human neighbourhood. or any nation. Military officials in the United Kingdom have acknowledged recently an increase in UFO reports, though they maintain that they are likely misidentified aircraft, drones or balloons. This is the same government that released the Calvine UFO image, although I will say that their statements do suggest a heightened awareness of the phenomenon at the very least. Some retired British military personnel have now gone on record expressing concerns that these sightings are not taken seriously enough given their potential implications for public safety. Critics argue that the lack of public disclosure fosters distrust and fuels theories that contend that if UFOs are indeed drawn to nuclear sites, governments have an obligation to investigate thoroughly and share their findings with the public, but also to ensure a protection or guardianship of the weaponry from the objects and for the wider national security. The suspension of Captain Bigelow's social media accounts following his Silver Orb sighting and video has once again added to suspicions that authorities might be withholding information about this phenomenon, the common suspicions that dogged Western governments throughout the 1990s and 2000s. But, just to throw this out there, whilst we discuss UFO sightings around nuclear sites and military installations, this doesn't provide a complete answer to the UAP question. A long and storied history of similar sightings above the United Kingdom, some dating back centuries, throw a spanner into the nuclear theory, at least in part. These mysterious objects, often described as metallic or luminous spheres, have been reported across the UK in various contexts long before the invention of airplanes or modern flight technology, and much longer than the existence of thermonuclear weaponry. The recurrence of such sightings over time suggests that the phenomenon is not a recent development, but rather a persistent enigma woven into the fabric of British history, although not uniquely British, as other cultures will attest to. Reports of strange aerial phenomena in the UK can be traced back to medieval and early modern times. Witnesses describe objects in the sky that closely resemble modern accounts of silver orb UFOs, often recorded as flying globes or spheres of light. These objects were typically associated with unexplained earthly phenomenon or as being religious in nature. One of the earliest recorded sightings occurred in the 13th century, during the Siantange War between England and France. Chronicles on both England and French sides documented an unusual globe of light that hovered over the battlefield. The glowing orb was said to move against the wind and linger in the sky for several minutes, while many battlefield troops looked on, before it vanished abruptly. Witnesses interpreted it as a divine sign or a warning, reflecting the spiritual and superstitious beliefs of the time. Fast forward to the 17th century, where similar sightings were documented in the historical record. In 1666, witnesses in the skies above Bristol in southwest UK reported a shining orb that appeared to defy gravity, moving rapidly before stopping abruptly in mid-air. This event was recorded in diaries and letters of the time, with more than 20 known observers, baffled observers, and was again at the time dismissed as unknown celestial phenomena, although it did not match known descriptions of meteors or comets, particularly given its maneuvers and abrupt hovering. With the advent of the Victorian era and the rise of industrialization, reports of unidentified aerial phenomena took on a new significance. In 1854, for example, residents of London, England, claimed to see a metallic spherical object hovering low above the city. Witnesses stated it stood in mid-air just above the roofline of the buildings, unmoving with a pulsating glow. Unlike weather balloons or known objects at the time, this sphere moved erratically and emitted a reflective sheen that captured the attention of multiple onlookers. Newspapers of the era speculated widely about the object's origins, speculations which ranged from experimental technologies, divine signs, to extraterrestrial visitors. The lack of scientific understanding at the time, coupled with growing public fascination with the mysteries of the cosmos and the emergence of science fiction literature, gave such sightings an almost mythological status. These Victorian accounts of silver orbs closely match descriptions provided by modern witnesses, suggesting a consistency in the phenomenon in a period before airplanes became a common sight in the skies. In 1909, villagers in rural Wiltshire, England, observed a glowing metallic object hovering above a cornfield. Witnesses described the orb as perfectly round and shining like polished silver. It moved without sound and eventually disappeared rapidly into the clouds. The descriptions from this era are no different from those in modern times. The idea that these orbs have been present for centuries raises further questions about their purpose. Are they surveillance devices, scientific probes, or something entirely beyond human comprehension? If they are technology from another world, why hasn't the technology advanced in almost 1,000 years of sightings? In fact, sightings go back further into antiquity, but for clarity, we'll keep it leaned at 1,000 years in this discussion. Some speculate a more esoteric explanation for the orbs, choosing to view the orbs as manifestations of energy or natural phenomena. These theories and postulation, while again speculative, attempt to bridge the gap between physical sightings and the mystical or symbolic interpretations common in historical accounts. The Manchester Airport observation in June 2024 fits perfectly into the pattern established by historical account. The object's reflective, metallical appearance and extraordinary maneuverability are consistent with what has been seen by quite literally thousands of people the world over for more than a millennia. If the orbs were merely experimental aircraft or drones, how could they be explained during times when such technology was inconceivable? This tends to suggest that governmental powers either have no idea what these objects are, or if they do, they are choosing to maintain their secrets for a very specific reason. For many, the Manchester Airport sighting is a reminder that UFOs are no longer relegated to the realm of science fiction or fringe science. But, with the rise of regular, credible reports and official acknowledgement of UAPs, the time has come for a more serious and open discussion about what these objects might be and why they seem so interested in humanity and potentially our military or nuclear capabilities. Whilst the discussion around unidentified aerial phenomenon is becoming more commonplace, it still needs to come fully into the light and be both accepted and a discourse between government and their public created. Cultures the world over know of the phenomenon's existence. Sightings are regular and common. Video footage and photographs are becoming more and more prevalent. This subject is no longer a secret or considered strange or out there. Instances should be reported in the news as breaches of national security when they occur, like they would if a Russian or Chinese jet flew into Western airspace. Until we know what they are, we need to assume a reluctance towards them. If we do know what they are, then this information should be disseminated as it concerns all of us. The sad fact, yet again, is that if governments and militaries know more than they are disclosing, then it's because they are using that information for reasons of power and suppression of all of us. It's about waging war and maintaining defensive superiority. It's about complete control. Good night, everyone.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our show tonight. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review on your chosen podcast platform and subscribe to our show so that you never miss an episode. Our shows aren't sponsored by any company or corporation, so any support you can give us goes a long way in supporting the work that we do. From all of us here at Dead Souls, sleep tight.